What's the state of play between India and Canada, especially after Sanjay Verma's interview to the Canadian newspaper?
Well, there's been some de-escalation between the ties, but one cannot say that the ties are normal at this stage. There's been a provocation, an accusation from Canada on several occasions in the last month or so, but no evidence whatsoever has been provided with the Indian government. We've seen India cancel all the visas, but gradually, some of the visas, including the business visas, have been approved, but the tourist visas have still not been approved by the Indian government. So clearly, the standoff remains. A lot of Canadian diplomats have been asked to leave, and they
40
have
of
left
them,
the country.
they've all left the country.
They've left the country. In
Yeah.
fact, I think 42 of them, and of course 42 other family members
Right.
of those Canadian diplomats, and maximum of them have gone to postings in Singapore and Malaysia now.
Right.
So at this moment, Indian High Commissioner Sanjay Verma in Ottawa has asked the Canadian government for evidence yet again, and he has said that whatever has been said inside the parliament or outside is rhetoric, is only propaganda, and these are baseless accusations without a shred of evidence. If you are tapping or wiretapping, two diplomats, a conversation, firstly you need to prove how do you manage to wiretap that, because there are international laws against it, and you cannot actually submit.
Where do you think things are at the moment, given the fact that he's also mentioned the fact that there are 26 extradition requests pending with the Canadian authorities?
And for years together. I mean, India has provided all the evidence possible against Khalistani terrorists who have got shelter in Canada, and how Canada has become a safe haven for these terrorists, and not just them, but a lot of others. Recently, during the Israel-Hamas war, we've seen a lot of Hamas apologists and supporters and Iranian proxies actually spreading venom and poison from the Canadian soil.
Right.
So much so that the mayor of cities and a lot of opposition politicians had to raise questions against the Justin Trudeau government and the RCMP. So as of now, the Canadian, the Indian High Commissioner in Canada has made it amply clear that if the evidence will be shared, we will look into it. But as of now, India will not de-escalate any further. The ball is in Canada's court.
Was there ever a plan to release this evidence, you think, from the Canadian side? We did talk about this earlier on, but what's taking them so long? I mean, 2 months now nearly?
Well, the official version in Canada is that we will submit the evidence in the court of law. But we know that this is just propaganda and narrative building, really. Justin Trudeau sees Sikh extremists, his sponsors, for his own vested politics. And he knows that a lot of constituencies have swing votes for them. And that's why he's appeasing these Sikh radical elements and the Khalistani elements.
Right.
They do not have any shred of evidence. What we have whatsoever seen is that the US and UK have been trying to intervene, perhaps Australia as well. And that's why there is some mending of ties between India and Canada. But India has been very much vocal that, if there is terrorism and if there is terror threat, India will act against it diplomatically, militarily, or use any other option, just like the US, UK and others have done in the past decades.
Right, and just when you said that things seem to be improving between India and Canada, you have this fresh video from Gurpatwant Singh Pannu where he's threatening the Indira Gandhi International Airport and asking people not to fly Air India. How does this play out, Aditya? How does a person as obnoxious as Pannu get sanctuary in the United States, and he's free to carry out these kind of threats?
Well, many call him the CIA agent, but I wouldn't go that further as of now because there's nothing to prove that. But it's true that for years together, Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, who calls himself attorney of SFJ, which is Sikhs for Justice, a designated terror group in India as per the UAPA, and Pannu has been staying both in New York in US as well as in Canada.
Right. And he's freely inciting violence. He's calling out all these videos. And I was reminded, Aditya, correct me if I'm wrong, about 15 years back, there was a case of an Indian student, Vikram Buddhi, who had posted some threats related to the US president on a chat room. And he was immediately yanked off and he was taken into custody and he had to spend a long time in prison. Whereas somebody like this goes around threatening, Indian property, Indian people, airlines. How do you explain this kind of double standards?
Well, India has been a victim of the foreign policy of the West for a very long time, and they have used such elements for a bargaining chip against India, be it for trade, for commerce, for military ties, for anything else. For Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, as of public knowledge, he is a dual citizen, a dual passport holder of Canada and US, and whatsoever no action has been taken. In fact, he has been provided security both in US as well as in Canada, and you can openly see whenever he exits his car, there are at least 3 to 4 bodyguards of the local law enforcement agencies with him. And now it's not just the threat that he has issued against the Air India and against the Sikh community from boarding the Air India flight from Canada to India.
He's warned them of consequences if they board Air India flights.
Now the propaganda has also shifted from Canada to US.
Right.
And we are seeing in California, these Nagar Kirtans, Sikh holy festivals that are being organized.
Right.
But under the garb of these festivals, there are these so-called referendums being organized, and there's a tableau this time around propagating and in fact glorifying the killers of General Vaidya, the former army chief and somebody who had commanded the Blue Star operation.
Right. In fact, he was the army chief when Blue Star was carried out, and that tableau there actually looks a lot like what we saw for Mrs. Gandhi when sometime last year they had paraded this tableau depicting her assassination. So this is like seems to be part of a plan in North America from these Sikhs for Justice groups to kind of incite violence and hatred and all of that.
Sandeep, truly, this is not just a conspiracy. It's been happening as per a step-by-step approach, a plan against India. But on the other hand, it also shows the duplicity and the hypocrisy of both the Canadian governments, the US government and their internal agencies. They, on one hand, in the parliament and in public discourse say that they believe in the international rules-based order. On the other hand, when such provocations happen, which are not in line with the local laws, there's no action taken.